For Hotel Transylvania 2, Genndy Tartakovsky, Robert Smigel, and Adam Sandler were able to continue what made the first one such an enjoyable film. Tartakovsky's penchant for excellent cartoon timing is still very much in this sequel, and there were parts where I was honestly crying from laughing so hard. The physicality of the animated denizens of Hotel Transylvania is perfect, with Tartakovsky not being afraid of putting them in some funny positions. The characters are still likable, and I like the added element of the dentist character and his relationship to Mavis, Jonathan, and Dracula. If there's a problem with this sequel, it's that the story is not quite as tight as the first movie. It feels like 3 episodes of a television series strung together, and it's kind of obvious when one episode ends and another begins. And as a result, when we get to the third act of the film, we suddenly get introduced to the main antagonist of the movie. Nonetheless, I found so much joy and laughter in Hotel Transylvania 2 that I found it hard not to enjoy myself during it. Anomalisa managed to be a bit of a departure for Charlie Kaufman, not just because it's animated, but also because it's his most low-key and least surreal work to date. At its core, it's a fairly simple story of a man on a business trip who ends up meeting a woman he falls for. However, what helps the execution is both the casting and the decision to make it stop-motion animated. The model work is incredible, with an amazing attention to detail, and the way they're designed and manipulated, it makes sense why it would not have worked as a live-action film. The decision to have Tom Noonan voice most of the characters is also effective in bringing us into the lead protagonist's point of view, and after a while we even start to accept this like he does. Jennifer Jason Leigh is the key here, with a genuine and real performance as Lisa, with a lot of layers and nuances. It's not quite as groundbreaking as a lot of people are claiming it is. After all, Bill Clinton has been making these sorts of mature animated films for years without having the name recognition of Charlie Kaufman. Nonetheless, it's a solid and very well-written examination of individualism, and how we should cherish that when we come across somebody unique. I don't usually talk about made-for-television animated features in these annual retrospectives, but since Warner Brothers actually made the effort to give regular show the movie a limited theatrical run to qualify for Oscar consideration, I will talk about it here. As a fan of the series, I actually quite like this movie. Part of the reason is that while it was essentially a longer episode, J.G. Quintel still gave Mordecai and Rigby genuine character arcs. This movie really tests their friendship more than any other episode, and the stakes are even larger as time travel in the future is further thrown into the mix. Of course, the humor is top-notch, with Benson's anger and Rigby's stupidity getting some of the best jokes. And like the series, there's a genuine love for 1980s popular culture, and one can see Quintel's influence very much on the screen. I do feel the animation could have used an upgrade to benefit the much larger scale of the movie. Nonetheless, I greatly enjoyed spending the extra time with Mordecai, Rigby, and the rest of the park gang. What might be Studio Ghibli's final film for a while, When Marnie Was There was a very strong entry into that catalog. One of the more down-to-earth films the studio has produced, rather than one of their more fantastical tales, that style fits the low-key story it's telling. Anna's uncertainty of being in a new town for the summer is well portrayed, with the proper subtlety required, though I do wish the film focused more on her being a half-European, half-Japanese girl, and the effect this has on her stay and her figuring out her place in the world. Nonetheless, the film does a good job of portraying themes of heartbreak, and I liked seeing the interaction between Anna and the girl she meets in a house near the river. Where the story goes is quite surprising and emotionally told. Of course, the animation is lovely and played a role in bringing me into this seaside town. While maybe a little slow in parts, When Marnie Was There still works as a whole. If this is the last movie we see from Studio Ghibli for a while, at least they left us hanging on a strong note. One of the most delightful films of the year, animated or otherwise, was Shaun the Sheep movie. Leave it to the talented stop-motion artists at Aardman to create something so filled with clever humor and incredible craftsmanship. Directors Mark Burton and Richard Starzak were clearly inspired by the silent films of Chaplin and Keaton when mounting this production. I love the way it relies purely on the animation of the characters, rather than dialogue, and I found myself smiling through the entire runtime. Shaun was a great supporting character in a close shave, and his television series was fantastic too. so his successful leap to lead role status in a feature film is not surprising. The animators managed to say so much with just a look, and each sheep feels distinct from one another. Bitzer the dog is oh so wonderful as he goes on his own escapades, and there's one running gag with a dog in the pound that is gloriously written. There's a sweetness in that search for their beloved farmer that warms the heart, and the villain is a genuine threat. Throw in the hummable music, courtesy of both the series theme and the new song Feels Like Summer, and you have a movie that should make almost anyone bah with glee. With Inside Out, Pete Docter took a basic concept of figuring out how our emotions and brain functions and crafted a very creative movie out of it, touching on strong themes that should resonate with a lot of people. Docter and the other Pixar story artists and writers had a whole canvas of possibilities with this film, and they took full advantage of them. The notion of dreams coming from a movie studio is a really clever idea, as are the memory balls. However, what really fuels Inside Out is the relationship between joy and sadness. This allows the writers to play around with characters that are supposed to be a single emotion, and are thus forced to develop them in a unique manner. The character of Bing Bong seems like he might go in one direction, and Docter uses our knowledge of certain character tropes to surprise us. The animation in the brain sections also fully embrace the medium, with the emotions each having distinct cartoony movements, and the voice actors are perfectly cast. Oddly enough, I don't think Riley is all that interesting, and I found her to be fairly one-note, especially when compared to her more colorful emotions. The designs in the outside world are also rather generic and dull, which pulled me out of the movie a little bit. However, Inside Out as a whole is so clever and well written that those minor issues do not affect the movie that much. While this is not one of my favorite Pixar movies, it nonetheless stands as another one of their works that I will watch and rewatch many times over the years. But my favorite animated film of 2015 was, without a doubt, the Peanuts movie. As a huge fan of Charles Schulz's comic strips, it was important to me that the creative team behind this film got it just right. One false move and the whole project might have fallen apart. However, director Steve Mattino, writers Craig Schultz, Brian Schultz, and Cornelius Uliano, and the entire artistic team at Blue Sky Studios captured the comics and classic specials amazingly well. In not messing with the formula or forcing modern-day references and toilet humor, they understood precisely the appeal of the Peanuts world and its inhabitants. The children they selected for the main characters were perfectly cast, and each of them was allowed their time to shine. Of course, this is mainly Charlie Brown's story, and that melancholic sense of constantly losing again and again was portrayed very faithfully here. But they also understood that the character, despite always getting his kite stuck in a tree, or not being able to kick the ball away from Lucy, tried his best to keep an optimistic attitude, buck up, and try again the next day. Him trying to impress the little redhead girl was a touching story that would be relatable to anyone who ever had their first crush, and the note it ends on cannot be more emotional. Snoopy is also an absolute delight, with the animators giving him the right poses, and his subplot involving the Red Baron served as a strong parallel to the main story. The animation looked exactly like the classic television specials, only giving a dimensionality when absolutely necessary, and showing why Blue Sky Studios has some of the most creative animators in the industry. The use of music was also cleverly done, with the classic themes of Vincent Guaraldi stirring the right emotions, Christoph Beck's original score nicely complementing the iconic jazz, and even a couple of new songs did not feel the least bit jarring. The humor, the heart, the drawing style, and all the other things that has made Peanuts resonate for so long was all in the Peanuts movie. And the team behind this film deserve an instant standing ovation for this wonderful achievement. And that's precisely why this is my favorite animated film of the year. So as you can see, it's been a pretty strong year all around. And 2016 looks to be pretty special in its own right, as Disney takes us to an animal-populated city and the Polynesian Islands, Illumination shows what your pets do when you leave the house, Laika brings us some Japanese culture, Seth Rogen invites us to an adults-only sausage party, Pixar returns the depths of the ocean, and some angry birds and an outer-space robot attempt to give us some good video game movie adaptations. See you next time.